Hi there, I'm Steve Duplessie, and I'm joined today with ESG Senior Analyst for Data Protection, Jason Buffington. Hi, Jason.
Good morning.
So, a couple of months back, in one of my semi-infamous video rants, was talking about the whole issue around consumerization of IT. And it kind of fundamentally boils down to there are consumer-oriented devices that employees and knowledge workers have decided we're going to use these because they positively affect the ability for me to do my job. And so in some ways, those are being rammed down IT's throat to be able to say, guess what? If these are better for me, then they're better for the organization. You're going to have to learn to deal with it.
Yep.
And so my primary contention was that that phenomenon is going to blow up everything we've traditionally known in terms of not only endpoint, but just the fundamental ability for IT to protect corporate information and valuable information, to allow our users to become more productive without impacting how that productivity happens. And so I think everybody at this point kind of agrees universally that is a real problem and is going to continue to be a problem. What I'm curious about is, are you seeing things now, A, that either make that problem go away, or B, are there companies now that are purpose-building solutions to be able to deal with this kind of phenomenon?
Oh yeah, so it absolutely is a problem, and corporate IT is still struggling with trying to find the right sets of tools and the right balance in order to actually try to solve for that. You know, in the old days, corporate IT used to give you a PC, and it wasn't just about the device itself and whether or not it was the right size screen or the right features or whatever, but that device also had all their management tools on there. It had all the monitoring software on it. It had all the things that allowed corporate IT to deliver service. Challenge is, if you're bringing your own device, do you really want corporate IT to put all those management agents and those little tools and applets on there? And for the most part, that's a non-starter, right? So now we have to see how are we going to protect the data? Because it's corporate data. It doesn't matter whose device it's on. Sure. It is corporate data, and that means the company needs it as much, if not more, than the user that created it. So the question is, how do we make sure that stuff still gets protected, including the device that it's sitting on?
So we used to do that by saying, hey, if you're going to use a laptop and have valuable corporate information or create valuable corporate information up there, make sure that you save it or sync it to some file server somewhere, and we'll protect that. And I would argue that didn't even work, you know, as a general rule, because people did it willy-nilly, et cetera. Now it's even further extreme. So how are you going to, the only way, and again, part of my contention was the only way that you're going to be able to do this is to make it so seamless that a user doesn't even know it's being protected.
Yeah, so the whole idea is that the days of corporate IT saying thou shalt doesn't happen anymore. Those days are over. So the question is, you got to figure out, what does the user want to do? And then simply have IT be part of the solution, not part of the problem. You know, from a backup as a service perspective, anytime that the user is doing anything to protect their data, they're several steps ahead of Joe Normal, right? So it's already a good thing. But the problem is, if I am Joe User and I decide to pick my own backup solution, I'm backing up my own way, corporate IT isn't part of that. We don't know if it's happening. We don't know where it's going. And oh, by the way, if something were to happen to the user, good, bad, or otherwise,
they're out of the equation.
They're out of the equation completely. You know, when online file sharing first started, it was really as much around just multi-device. So I have a tablet, I have a work PC, I have a personal PC, I got all these different gadgets, right? And online file sharing allowed me to have equal access to all of them at the same time. And just like you said, it's set and forget. And as a consumer myself, what I would do is I would pick whichever one of those services was most interesting to me. I would download this little applet from whatever store or portal that I needed. And then from there, I logged in once and it was set and forget. And then magically, my files were always everywhere I needed them. But where online file sharing is today, not only is it everywhere that I need them on all of my devices, it's also on all the devices of the friends that I decide to share those folders with. And again, as much as online file sharing gives me fundamental backup of that device, if I lose a device, if I break it, at least I've got a copy someplace else, the liability that starts from the idea of, if I'm sharing that with other users, that's really dangerous, because again, we don't know where that data is. It's not like corporate IT would ever open up their file server and say, hey, share these folders with whomever you wanted. That doesn't happen. But really, with online file sharing, that's what's happening. Is individual users can make those choices themselves. If I use a consumer-based online file sharing service, then I'm given my own credit card, you know, $8 a month or whatever it happens to be, and I'm getting all my stuff. When I leave, that's my account.
Yep.
Okay, and I can choose to keep it and all the data that's in it.
Yep.
When what we're doing is we're putting corporate IT back in, not in a thou shalt, because that won't. Right? But instead, it's let me be part of the solution. Let me enable. You want to do file sharing? Sure, use this file sharing service. You want to make sure your data is protected? Sure, here's a backup as a service functionality as well. And by the way, everything we're talking about so far is around securing the data, but really to secure the data completely, you have to secure the device as well. You know, one of the biggest challenges with bring your own device is somewhere along the way, you're going to lose it, you're going to break it, something along the way. And I will tell you, so just a few months ago, I lost a tablet, left it at Starbucks in Santa Clara. Never did get it back. But by the way, the file system was encrypted. I was regularly syncing and backing up. And most importantly, within just a few hours, I called as a Starbucks all day long. At the end of the day, when they said, no, no one's turned it in, I remotely wiped the device. So I bricked it. Right? So from that point on, I know I was covered. And then again, that's all part of that experience of saying, okay, we're not going to ask the users to change the way they want to do things, but it's corporate data. We have a responsibility to manage and protect it. And so we're putting IT back in the equation in an unobtrusive way.
You bring up an important point. So one of the, if I look at myself as a user, which I am, I hate when somebody interjects something into my process. Now, my process might be terrible, but I hate when IT or something is forcing themselves in the middle of something that I do already.
Sure.
So in order for these, and historically that's always been part of the problem, right? IT has been said, if you want this backed up, you have to put it over here. And just that little thing, which sounds so innocuous at best, people don't do it. Right? People don't do it. They don't like having their life flow, if you will, upset. So how do you, and the only way something like this can be successful is that the user, it is truly a set and forget. So the user doesn't even know it's kind of happening until they need help. And then all of a sudden IT can jump in as the white knight as opposed to, you know, the dark force that says you can't do this.
Exactly. Users today, they could pick any one of a half a dozen different file sharing services. They could pick half a dozen or more endpoint backup devices. And then depending on what kind of platform, they've got a couple different options for remote wipe. The corporate IT guys say, look, I'm going to send you an email. It's going to give you, instead of 6 choices, you now have 7. If you use the 7th choice, we'll pay for it. Right? And oh, by the way, for backup as a service, there's a dozen companies out there that are doing it. Now instead of 12, there's going to be 13. If you use this one, we'll pay for it. And oh, by the way, by doing that, we'll be there when you need to help recover data. We'll be there when your manager says, you know, how are you being compliant to corporate policy? But the experience other than that is, it's just clicking over on this left-hand icon instead of this right-hand icon. It's a one-time deal.
No heavy footprint. No. Right. So I still do things the same way I want to do them, which is I don't even want to do them. Right? It just happens. Automagic in your term.
Automagically. It's actually my favorite data protection word because again, it should be set and forget. You know, so once I've configured this, then I work in the folders that I used to work in. It's no differently than you don't do anything for mail, right? You create mail, you send mail, you receive mail. It just happens. So data protection, file service sharing, that can all happen exactly the same way as well. The difference is instead of relying on every user to be successful or fail on their own, and oh, by the way, expose the company while they're doing it, this introduces corporate IT back into the equation in an unobtrusive, non-monolithic way to give them the view and the management that they need and is business justified without impacting the user.
So philosophically, at the very least, this is sort of the way at least my opinion, this is the way the industry has to evolve.
Yeah, you know, this is one of those pendulum swinging things. You know, back in the old days, pendulum was in the far right. It was monolithic. The IT department said, here is your PC, thou shalt, right? Those days are over. Pendulum swing all the way to the other side, where the user is saying, I'm going to do what I want to do, and you can't do anything about it. Now we got the pendulum swinging back towards the middle, where corporate IT has a justified reason to be part of the equation, and yet the user needs to be able to do what the user needs to be able to do. This is the right way to go, and I think this is what we're going to see more and more of moving forward.
Terrific. Thanks very much for your time today, Jason.
Thank you.